The Democratic Party is in shambles. And let me tell you, the way to resuscitate it is not by resurrecting the ghost of Andrew Cuomo.
Welcome to Guys
Hello, citizens of the world. How are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of Guys
It's the Anti-Slut Shaming Podcast. I'm Corinne Fisher.
I'm Krystyna Hutchinson.
Welcome.
You want to email us at SorryAboutLastNightShow@gmail.com. Today's subject line: working in male-dominated fields and sexual jokes. Oh, I'm sure this will be like an inspiring story about good things. Hey, I'm excited to write y'all today and get your advice on setting boundaries and honestly rant a bit about how frustrating it is to work in a man's world. I am 25, have progressed quite quickly in my field. I work for an environmental company and am one of the youngest females, which I'm very proud of. I travel across the country to different projects, typically spending a few weeks to a few months in an area. I love the freedom, I love the free travel, I love the money, and I'm passionate about taking care of the planet. Well, good for you, girl. I work in a man-dominated field, which I don't typically mind. I even tend to gravitate towards / befriend the old grumpy guys on project sites. They are my favorite to learn from, joke with, and hear to tell stories. My frustration is when I come across a grown man, in quotes, many with wives and kids that don't know how to act around women. It's so funny. I was just talking about this the other day. I am a fairly confident woman. I dress extremely modest to work. I wear nothing too tight and nothing that shows off my curves. I typically wear light mascara and have my hair pulled back. I am extremely conscientious about my appearance because I don't want to invite unwanted attention. I mean, you exist in the world, so that's inviting unwanted attention. All this is to say that I promise my shoulders are covered at all times, aka my justification to the fucking men of the world that say we're asking for it. Anyways, I'm pretty new to the company and came because my boss is fantastic. He is a raging Trump Republican, LOL, but is extremely respectful of me, is a great mentor, and is my biggest advocate and recognizes my talent. That's great. There is this one senior coworker that really rubbed me the wrong way during the last work trip. This guy made a few sexual jokes, and specifically some about our female clients, then made a, quote, accidental sexual joke about me, and made another sexual joke about me and my boss, who quite frankly is old as fuck. I laughed along, but now I'm home and I'm feeling fucking violated. I'm so annoyed that I didn't set the right boundary and feel like I disrespected myself. I'm just all around frustrated. I joke with the guys, but never about anything sexual. I never comment on sexual jokes I hear anyone make, but will laugh along occasionally. I okayed this behavior by laughing, but it's still unacceptable, especially for a 40-year-old man that is in a senior position to do this. I had thought this guy made me uncomfortable because he's a bit rough and tough and we haven't created a good rapport yet. But now I'm realizing he's just fucking disrespectful of women. Like sometimes if we are in a group and I say something to him, he does not respond or acknowledge me. I'll then have to repeat myself and call him by name to get a response. Isn't that cute? I want to set much better fucking boundaries next time I'm in this kind of situation. I laugh along when they aren't about me, but now that I was made the butt of the joke, I'm frustrated. I probably shouldn't be entertaining this behavior at all, and the fact that I am is me trying too hard to fit in. Any advice to casually set boundaries to your more senior coworkers or anyone at work, especially while I'm in a group of guys laughing along? Attached is a photo of me. I'm on the left. These are clearly not my work clothes. Much love, loyal fucker. # Corinne for Mayor 2025. Side note, the guys were talking about Cuomo and his criminal behavior, and I said, quote, I know a comedian that's running for mayor, and they said, quote, I hope he wins. And I said, I hope so too. Sending you their well wishes, regardless of their assumption that a comedian had to be a man.
Jesus, they are far behind.
Yeah. I like trying this new tactic where you hold, like, I feel like men that are the type of guys that you're describing in this email that are making these like crude jokes and not responding or acknowledge that you said something to them until you say their name. I would just, it's all about holding a mirror up to their own behavior to make them personally responsible for your behavior and not you. When you're left feeling like confused and like, wait, hold on, what just happened here? You don't have time to hold a mirror up to them. And so I just like simple lines like, what did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? Would you say that to a male coworker? Would you joke about that to a male coworker? No? Okay, cool. And then just walk away. I'm a fan of poignant short lines that make them feel stupid.
You can also be like, I don't get it. Can you explain that to me in detail?
That's a good one too.
I don't understand what you meant by that. Can you explain that to me in detail?
Sorry, my titties are so heavy. I didn't concentrate on what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of times, like especially when you're going against a group of people who are hiding misogyny as humor, which is a huge problem, even in larger scale government. They're just gonna kind of like hit back at with you, like with like, oh, you can't take a joke, or like you don't have a good sense of humor. But I think like, yeah, being quietly holding your boundaries, I think is the way to do it. And even, I mean, I don't like this tactic, but being like, what would you think if a bunch of guys were making jokes like that around your daughter? I don't like having to do that, but sometimes you really have to reframe it so that people think of it within their own sphere. Otherwise, they won't care.
Yeah.
We're in a really selfish time right now, and it's not just men. Women are selfish too. So it's hard to get through to people. But I think, yeah, don't just keep laughing along with it, because you're right. By laughing along with it, that is
a silent okay.
Yeah, it's a laughing okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of just, I know. And then like if you ever tried to fight back on it in the future, people would be like, well, you were sitting there and laughing with us, which is confusing.
Yeah.
In their defense.
Yeah.
It's and not also your fault. It's their fault.
Sometimes when somebody says something that's shocking to you and it's the first time you're encountering them saying something of this nature, you freeze. It doesn't have to be a huge freeze. It could just be like a quick like, huh? And then, your faculties are not all available to you in those moments sometimes. And that's why we'll go home and go, fuck, I should have said this and I should have said that. Which is why I like having a couple lines in my arsenal. It's like being a stand-up comic and you prepare a couple crowd work lines for generic situations that you're going to encounter. Have a couple crowd work lines for these guys, What did you mean by that? Can you explain?
Yeah.
There you go.
And on a positive note, you are getting, obviously these men have always spoken this way because there is very rarely a woman around, and now there's a woman around, right? So the positive note is like you're getting the same spyware that we get as female comedians, that you're getting to see how men really talk when women aren't present. And I think there is some value in that to help understand why things are the way they are. You guys know I always report it back to you, and then you get mad at me like I, said something, or like I'm lying to you. I'm like, no, I'm just actually reporting the truth. But take it as you want it.
Mm-hmm. Guys, you can find us other places. Did you know I have a Patreon? Have I ever talked about it on here? I feel like I haven't. Every once a week, I hold a Zoom that I call Group Therapy, and it's for anybody who wants to join. I think the memberships start at $5 a month, which is pretty cheap. You get access to all of these Zooms where we just kind of go around and I lead group therapy, but it's not called that because I'm not a licensed therapist. But I have some experience in giving advice. And it's a really cool space. It's one of the few spaces on the internet that I leave it feeling better about the human condition than I did before. And I can't say that about most things in my life. So that's very exciting. So if you want to sign up, it's patreon.com/Krystyna Hutchinson.
And if you want to learn more about the news with me, you can watch my show every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. It's called Without a Country. You can also listen to it anywhere you listen to podcasts, but I do recommend watching it on YouTube. If you watch it live, you can call in C-SPAN style, which is very exciting. And we talk about national, sometimes international news. And then, of course, I do give different coverage than I give here, kind of more in-depth political coverage of the mayoral race that I am competing in every week. So it's a really fun show. I also have a Patreon. If you want to get an additional bonus video news story every week, you can sign up at patreon.com/withoutacountry. It's a really, it's a fun and I feel tolerable way to help you better engage with people who feel differently about political and social issues in your life. A reminder to critically think every week. It will improve your media literacy, which I think is an important and overlooked challenge that we're dealing with right now in a time when we take so much political information in via social media. And it's just kind of a way to get all the news you need to know for the week in one portion instead of having to I go all over for you so you don't have to.
How you doing?
Very tired.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting week. So, I mean, we've been preparing for a long time for Andrew Cuomo to announce that he was running for mayor, and the announcement came over this weekend. Some people are acting like it's funny because like anyone we knew when we entered the race that this was most likely going to happen at one point during the race. And some people are acting like, oh man, he got you. You're never going to win now. And I'm like, no.
Really?
We enter. Well, I mean, these people I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But people online. And I'm like, and I'm just like, no, like we knew this was going to happen. And this was actually the moment I was most excited for Andrew Cuomo to enter the race because, part of this, part of running for mayor is that we need better options so that we don't have these same recycled, creepy, crusty men governing us. This is a man who is not fit to be around women, never mind govern a city where there are more women in New York City than men.
Yeah.
So like, what are we talking about right now? Times are difficult, and I think people really are looking for someone who has strength, right? And I think we are confused about what strength is. Andrew Cuomo is a bully, notoriously, to his staff. Anyone who speaks out against him, he retaliates against him. Those people, he's vindictive. He is.
But he's Italian.
Yeah, I mean, so he's all these things. He's also a Nepo baby. He comes from he's a titan in politics because he comes from a political family. I mean, the list goes on and on. He's a liar. He's self-serving. He wrote a book when he was supposed to be governing, and he used staff to help him put it together. He got $5 million for the book and then had to give it back to the city because everyone's like, yeah, you can't like use New York City taxpayer staff to write book or New York, not New York City, New York taxpayer staff to write a book.
Yeah.
You know?
He spent $25 million defending himself from 11 credible sexual assault allegations.
Not all sexual assaults, sexual misconduct legally is what we should be saying. But yeah.
Yeah, we read through the report when we were making a video series and it was like, ugh, when you read it, Letitia James put together a committee to do this report, and boy, oh boy, not good.
Yeah, so I mean, I think people are frustrated and exhausted, and like, I don't even care if this is a bad man as long as this is a man who can stand up to Trump. And like Cuomo and Trump can go head to head, but that's the thing is, it's like Andrew Cuomo is just mini Trump. And who do you think is going to win against OG Trump and mini Trump in a battle? Well, I would say OG Trump. They're the same type of person. And one is president and one is a governor who had to step down, who's now running for mayor. Let's look at the odds here.
From sexual misconduct.
This is a man who's on a quest for power, who cannot admit when he is wrong, has still not admitted to basically any of the things he's been accused of. And I think that we have to keep taking it. We have to keep taking these same type of people to govern us because this is all that we're offered. And well, at least this is a name that I know. So I feel more comfortable. You know, the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know. Is it?
Nah.
We have to try something new, but as a society, we have to be willing to try something new.
Yeah.
So we keep trying the old thing. The old thing isn't working. The Democratic Party is in shambles. And let me tell you, the way to resuscitate it is not by resurrecting the ghost of Andrew Cuomo.
It's not.
Okay? I can't even believe he's still around, quite frankly. These
Yeah.
are old people with old values and old views, old views. Nothing tells you that someone is more out of touch than releasing a 17-minute video declaring that you're running for mayor. This man on Instagram put a 17-minute video right there that tells you he has no idea what's going on. No one releases a 17-minute video. A 30-minute episode of television is only with commercials is only a couple minutes longer than Andrew Cuomo's announcement video.
His tone was very condescending. I mean,
because that's who he is. It's not his tone. It's literally who the man is.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
It's who he is. It's very much so. You know, like how when Donald Trump was running for president, people had merch that said "Daddy's home." There's this new.
How dare you make that word bad?
There's this new era of daddy's home governing that we are quite right now, and Andrew Cuomo is a part of it. Watch his announcement video. It is very much like daddy's home and daddy's gonna handle this for you. You guys have been bad New Yorkers, and daddy's here and daddy's gonna fix everything. That's alarming.
Thanks, Daddy.
That's alarming. It's infantilizing, and no wonder he allegedly reaches up underneath women's shirts on his staff and grabs their titty.
Yeah, to allegedly a lot of ladies that worked for him.
Oh God,
one was a state trooper.
Weekend update. I laughed so hard.
Yeah.
What was the actual delivery of the joke?
It was Andrew Cuomo announced that he's running for governor or mayor of New York City. His campaign slogan is "Honka Honka."
I mean, it was I laughed so hard.
Like, get him, Che.
Because that's exactly who this guy is.
Yeah.
He's
creepy and he's old and he's
old
gross.
News. He's the laughing stock among half of New York City.
The other half really likes him though.
Yeah, I mean this is a joke.
Yeah, I'm always so, because as you're listening to this, so you know that we do so much advocacy for people who've been affected by sexual assault, and it's been interesting. We're in the petitioning process of the campaign, and just meeting with volunteers to collect signatures, and talking to New Yorkers. It's so like the couple that are coming up that are like Cuomo all the way. I'm like, really? And they're all women so far. I'm like, and I try to have a conversation with one. I'm like, but he has 11 credible sexual assault allegations on him. I don't believe a single one. I'm like, you didn't. I know you didn't read a single one. So what are we doing here? Like when somebody denies reality, it's and there's a lot of that right now going on. Yeah, it's tough.
There's a lot of people who are voting for Andrew Cuomo because they hope to one day have sex with Andrew Cuomo. And that there,
girl, aim higher, girl.
That right there should tell you that we're in quote unprecedented times. I always make fun of it saying unprecedented times on Without a Country because I'm like, well, all times will eventually be unprecedented times because like that's what life is. It's unexpected things happening. So I hate when people say unprecedented times. I'm like, yeah, times will continue to be unprecedented. It's called progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's going on right now. And so it's also an interesting time. First of all, if you signed up to volunteer, make sure that you're checking your email. So we have hundreds of volunteers that signed up, but you actually have to then sign up for the specific shifts for petitioning. We really need you right now. Like March is the time that we really, really need all of our volunteers to be signing up during the week, during the weekends, all the time. Mm-hmm. And then donations, obviously. I'll keep making that plea. I don't like asking for money, but I have to, right? It pays staff. It enlarges the campaign. It's so important. And it is a way that if every single person who listens to this podcast, in America, gave $20-$30, it really would make a big difference. The power of grassroots, I believe in more than ever. The power of voting, I believe in more than ever. Make sure whatever local elections are happening in your community, make sure that you are registered to vote by the proper deadline. Make sure that if you have a closed primary that you have registered with the Democratic or the Republican Party or whatever party it is that you want to be a member of, but to vote in that primary. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the local politicians running. Maybe if there's one that you really like that you think could be the change that you want to see in your community, offer to help that candidate by canvassing for that candidate, or petitioning. Petitioning happens everywhere. Petitioning for that candidate. So just those are the ways when you feel so overwhelmed and you write us emails here and on Without a Country. I feel so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. Get out into the community and really do something. Right? You don't have to run for office yourself, but there's a million other ways you can help. It's sad that we live in a country where people literally died to get the right to vote for different communities, and so many people don't even bother to vote on election day. Voting is the bare minimum we all should be doing to live in a place, right? It's the bare minimum. And then there are so many other things that we need to do, we need to participate in to have a functioning democracy, right? We wonder, why are things the way they are? Well, part of it is because we've lost faith and we have stopped participating in the democratic process, right? Democracy is of the people, but if the people stop participating, that's how we get people at the top taking complete control, which we see happening right now. But Donald Trump is just taking over our government right now. Elon Musk too. And so if that is not enough to get you to vote, I'm not sure what to tell you. But what I can tell you, and I will keep telling you, is that your vote does make a difference and your vote does have an impact. Again, I don't know if we talked about this last week, or I've talked about this numerous times before, certainly on Without a Country, but one of the Republican Party's strategies was just local women in like Pennsylvania and other areas. They went and they took it upon themselves to get Amish people registered to vote and ran little vans back and forth from Amish communities to polling stations. And this accounted for tens of thousands of votes that were added to Donald Trump's tally. And these are just women, everyday women in the neighborhood. They did this because they knew this was an area. These were people who, because of like times and their religion and their religious services, a lot of times like it just didn't work out that they were able to vote. And they were like, no, we know that they're going to vote Republican, so we're going to make it so much easier for them to vote. It's truly the opposite of voter suppression, which is also happening. Mm-hmm. And then for my international fans, and this is for everyone, but like for my fans, for the listeners, it is. You kind of be asking what you can do. A really helpful thing to do is when you see articles being written about the other candidates in the New York Times or Gothamist or City and State, which is more local, or Politico, any of these things online, right? You're on Instagram anyway. Follow these things, float around to a couple of them, and you'll see people in the comments panicked, being like, who do I vote for? Are there any good options? And literally just be like, hey, check out at Corinne Fisher for mayor. That is so helpful because it just like people are in those comments looking for something that's not Andrew Cuomo, for something that is not Eric Adams. And so just commenting that or responding to people who are like, are there any candidates under 60? Yes, there is. Corinne Fisher for mayor. And you guys have already started doing that. But I just think that's like, if everyone wants to help, those are absolutely great ways to help. Because I can't be doing it myself. I can't be like, check out Corinne Fisher. That's like psychotic. But so those are just some calls to action for this week. But yeah, we're deep in the petitioning process. So and it's been interesting. We're just standing in Union Square Park during the farmers market, and I approached a lot of young people. That was my technique, especially young women. And you have to ask them, "Are you a registered Democrat?" We start the conversation. Most people were very receptive, but there are also lots of people who are kind of like, "I'm good," and like, "You're good on what? You're good on not participating in America. You're good on not being a part of electing leaders, but good on complaining about them." Like, I just really don't have any tolerance for people who are like, don't have 2 seconds for a conversation that could truly change the trajectory of an entire city.
Yeah.
So just, this all this to say, if someone asks you to stop, are you a registered Democrat? Are you a registered Republican? They're not asking for their health. They're asking because they're excited about someone and they want you to learn about them. So just give them 2 minutes,
Yeah, man. I've been listening to this podcast that so many people have recommended to me, and I finally got around to listening to it.
Oh, the telepathy ones?
Yeah, the telepathy tapes. Talks about something that I already knew about that I was so excited to learn that I'm like, how are we not all talking about this? And so the main spine of the show is that there's been so many studies on autistic kids who are nonverbal and use a typewriter to communicate, who have telepathy and have a lot of other psychic abilities that seem very stressful to have. But I'm on episode 6 now. It's so fucking fascinating. But it's an interesting... it brings up, like, I love listening to podcasts that make me think, and I like have little conversations with myself in my head and I pause it. This one certainly is no exception. And just about energy. Like, energy is something we can all feel. Obviously, you know, the theme of this show, sexual energy, is very empowering when it's used consensually and correctly and to, like, your authentic self, like you're authentically being your sexual self. It's one of the best feelings to me in the world when you can express yourself like that. And so this podcast just talks about child after child and all these people doing studies and who have worked with nonverbal autistic kids. And I'm like, guys, we cannot sleep on this. Like, we are overlooking this huge gift that they have that is just, it's so exciting and so fascinating. And I think I'm also of the belief that I think everybody has it. But the reason I brought that up is because listening to that podcast and thinking about energy and how we all have like these energetic, like you could throw an energetic dart at somebody when you're pissed at them and it feels shitty, or like being in traffic and being road ragey. It's just made me more mindful of my energy. And so I've been using this petitioning process when I try to like wrangle New Yorkers over to a clipboard to sign for you. I've been, especially when we were in Union Square, I've just been doing like little experiments of like not asking every single person. Cause then what that does is my energy is like, hey, are you registered? Hey, are you registered? Hey. And so like every person I ask is getting this like buzzy, anxious, off energy. And
I definitely don't ask every person. I've gotten so good at being able to tell by looking at someone who's a registered Democrat.
Yeah, me too.
And who isn't. And my track record was like real good.
Once I started being picky with who I asked, I'm like, oh, and it's all energy. It's all energy. And I could tell even the ones when the words leave my mouth, I'm like, they're going to say no, or they're going to tell me to fuck off. And they always do. And I'm like, nice. It's like when we did our live show and we'd had the dating game and we asked the girlfriends to leave with me and the boys weren't with you. And we're like, which one of your friends does your girlfriend want to fuck the most? If she had to pick, would you think? And then by the time they come back on stage and they're like, Andrew. And the whole room is like, she wants to fuck Andrew. We're all so excited. We're like all behind it. It's like, it's kind of like that feeling. It's very like, yeah, I was right. Even if you're mean about it, I was right that you were going to be mean about it. So it's very interesting. And I also... gets a flirt. It's kind of fun.
I wasn't flirting with anyone, but yeah.
I was.
I mean, it's just
with my eyes.
It also just makes me laugh. And you know, in a city like New York City, where everyone is, you know, so on their high horse about their social and political beliefs, you know, and this is not all New Yorkers, but the amount of attitude from some people for even daring to ask, it's like, do you want things to change, or do you just want to talk like you want things to change? I think so many people don't even understand that every single candidate, including Andrew Cuomo, including Eric Adams, has to send a team out to do this. Yeah, obviously the more grassroots candidates will have people in more public areas, whereas the other, you know, the higher end candidates, you know, in quotes, will just have it done among their, you know, little democratic clubs and everything like that. But do you want government to be happening out of sight? Because if you keep not engaging with it, that's what's going to continue to happen. So you think government should be a separate thing that's happening out of your eyesight, when the other option is that it happens in your eyesight and you participate and you have a say. I just can't. It's just very hard for me to digest that.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to bring our guest. Well, one thing I also wanted to promote or like put in your ear, speaking of non-American listeners, if you live in London, England, I'm going to be there, and I'm pretty sure, just giving you a save the date. It's not booked yet, but I'm in the process of Monday, April 7th. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a 7 p.m. show somewhere in London. So I know we have a lot of London listeners, and last time I was there, I sold out the Leicester Square Theatre, which was fucking amazing. You guys are such good comedy audiences. You're very shy at first, but then once you get massaged, you're rowdy, and I really appreciate that. So just save the date, and all details coming soon. Speaking of that, our guest, this was such a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
I could have talked to this guy for hours. So much knowledge about, I have a lot of stand-up bits about animal behavior. I love comparing animal behavior to human behavior. And this guest, it's part of his job, and he wrote a book about it. He's a professor of biology, and he's the author of several books, but the latest one being The Sexual Evolution, How 500 Million Years of Sex, Gender, and Mating Shape Modern Relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show,
Nathan Lentz.